or it's real that our kids don't have all of the books that they need to know about, figures in Africa like Mansa Musa or, Timbuktu or Kush. We don't have that readily available to our children. So it's our responsibility to ensure that they have that knowledge so that they can continue to show pride in who they are.
I think that's the problem. It's his story, and that's being taught, and not our story. And that goes, that goes to the heart of what you're saying, Robin, that we are the first teachers, and we've always had to have a double standard. We got one story in school, and at home and in our churches and our institutions, we got our stories. And my parents made sure we had books to read about our history. We had examples about our history.
I think for me and for my family, it is a time of reflection. It is a time to ask those questions like why? Why doesn't the American society embrace the true history of African Americans? Because slavery is our pain. I mean, we do talk a lot about slavery and what came after that, but slavery is an interruption of our true history.
What does Black History Month mean to me? That sort of puts me in the mindset of its founder, Dr. Carter Woodson, who founded Negro History Week back in 1926. So yes, Dr. Woodson really wanted people to understand the contributions of people of African ancestry in terms of their contributions in the U.S. and their dispositions prior to coming to the U.S. Because there had been a number of inaccuracies in terms of what contributions people of African ancestry had made in this country or what their prior dispositions were.
We don't talk about the pharaohs and the gods, and we don't talk about the pyramids and the first engineers and the first doctors. The pyramids surpass even today's architect. No one can even understand how it became about. And so the fact of the matter is that the Black man, woman, African, Black, Egyptian were the first people of the human race. People don't talk about it, and you have to say to yourself, why?
So for me, it's a time when we can sort of have escape from our individualistic attitudes and adopt more of a collectivism in terms of our shared experiences and really talk about the African experience from a historical standpoint, current context, and future implications. Because I think Dr. Woodson's intentions were that it's not about American history, it's really about African history, because the experiences that have happened to people of African ancestry in the U.S. is actually American history.
Why would you not talk about the first of men? We talk about the first of everything else, and we teach our kids in the classroom. We literally lie to them. We're not true to what is. And so this small February month of that they call Black History is just a time for us to really reflect and start asking those true questions. As Blacks, we have to empower our own children, because unfortunately the classroom will never teach them the truth of where they come from. And so it's our time to really empower ourselves and empower our children to know their true history.
Well, for me, I'm a mom. I'm raising a young male, and I want him to know his roots. I want him to know his origin. I want him to know that, there are many people who sacrifice for him. And like you said, with the current events, I don't want him to think that that's who he is. I don't want him to be defined by what's going on in today's society. I want him to have self-respect. I want him to have some pride, some dignity. I want him to be educated, things that people sacrifice so that we can have today. So that's my effort for me to raise my son like that.
And how sad it must be to be a Black child, to go into a classroom that's not teaching you about the greatness of yourself. And you can be taught at home, but I don't understand why we are not embracing that true African culture and telling our kids, the Black kids and the white children, where it all originated from. I'm not understanding that. I have a hard time.
To me, it's a time to reflect on how far we as Black people, not just Americans, but all over this world, has come. And it's a time to give thanks and say how appreciated we are of the people who came before us in the past. So it's also a time to reflect back on how much further we have to go as a people. You know, I'm talking about some of our young people right now. They really don't have an understanding of what's really going on. They're not watching the news or media in that context.
Black History Month means a lot to me. As I get older, I'm realizing that there's a lot of work that needs to be done. As a child, I thought about Martin Luther King, but as an adult, as a mom, as a woman, it's so much more. It's a time where I reflect, it's a time where I rejoice, it's a time where I have to recommit. I think about all the giant shoulders that we stand on today that allowed me to be where I'm at today. I think about the kings and queens, I think about our ancestors, I think about all the inventions that are untold of. I think about all the determination, the hope, and the perseverance that our people did so that we could stand here today.
I also reflect on, all the things that's going on right now that we hear. Black Lives Matter, we matter. And Black History Month just put me back in that frame of mind to say that, just because you're from a different country, a different part of the world, that doesn't mean that you're not Black. It just means that we had a different struggle. We all got here the same way. So I'm here to tell you that Black History Month is not just for Americans, it's for people all over this world. I'm Jamaican, but I'm still feeling all the Black history, the love that comes along with this Black History Month.
It's a month where I'm becoming increasingly more enthused about. It's a very fragile, but at the same time, there's a lot of strength with this month. It's more than a month to me. It's every day. Today I find myself researching, Googling, looking back and reflecting on everything because I realized that as a child, like I said, when I was a youngster, I thought about Martin Luther King. Today, I think about there's so much more where I've been rooted from. There's so much more that I need to know about my people. And I just want to empower others. I want to empower my son as a parent to know that he has a victorious spirit. Like, he was born from kings and queens. He was born where there was a lot of natural resources. I want to know that despite what's going on today in today's world, he doesn't have to be exposed to that. There is so much more to look forward to. So this month is a lot because I have a lot of work to do. And I'm grateful to be around like-minded coworkers who have the same spirit so we can continue this momentum.
Empowerment, understanding our history of where we come from is so powerful, not only for us, but to pass on to our children, understand who they are, where they came from. It just opens up so many doors. There's a king and queen in each of us. And for our kids, we have to show them that they can be anything. Their knowledge is beyond the classroom of what they're learning there. We got to show them what our history is about and where we really came from, and understanding that our whole world was built on us. We're the first, and we created most things that are still being recreated today. We had already created before time is even recording. So a lot of things have to be transferred to our children, that there's a king and queen in them, and they have to really bring it out. We have to bring it out and keep the history going so it never dies.
What we have to do is sort of turn that into momentum to bring about new paradigms so that things are looked at differently. Because if you look at the 13th Amendment, which was the amendment which abolished slavery, there's one caveat to slavery. That's called criminal incarceration. So that's why you see policies change, because slavery never ended. It transcended. It became incarceration. And that's why education is important, because then you don't need to have information filtered to you. You can conceptualize it and assess it for yourself. And by doing that, we can talk in, because when I speak from an epistemological perspective, meaning that I examine how you know what you know, so that we can sort of separate opinion from belief. And you can most universally do that through math. Because no matter what culture you say it in, 2 + 2 = 4. So I think that we have to certainly look at ways to progress what we've all said here. Because to just look at from a historical standpoint is gonna result in stagnation. We have to go to the next level because anything that's relevant has to transform.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd like to speak on a perspective to where we are in terms of today. In terms of the many incidents that have occurred in our local media outlets of the disgusting displays of lack of socialism and such and so forth, I believe it is a time where we can lean back and begin to speak about the importance of our nationalism, our pride. It is important that we begin to advocate for our young people and our families, young and old, that we understand who we are.
Black History Month means for me a time to reflect and think about the rich cultural heritage that African Americans have come into, our legacy, the greatness, journeying from Africa, coming to a land unknown, starting over, bringing our culture, bringing our music, bringing our spirit, our connectedness to a spiritual being.
Well, one thing, Black History, one thing is self-pride and respect. And I think that's some of the things that we've lost, the things about having self-esteem and who we are as a people. We come from a proud heritage of kings and queens, and we seem to have lost that. So it's just, it seems like we're at the point in our life now where things have become very materialistic. Our children are more interested in sneakers and things that have no meaning. They don't know how to look at themselves and see that there's pride in the way you carry yourself and when you speak. We refer to ourselves as niggers, as bitches and whores and things that, only despicable. And we've also lost a sense of what a family's about.
Even when we look in the construct of urban communities such as ours here in Bridgeport, such as those across the nation, we begin, even we talk about education, there is a lack of curriculum building that speaks towards the advancements of African American people, both near and far. I believe it is a time for us to reflect and to collect and to remember all those who have put forth the efforts in making sure the advancement of our people and doings of our people are spoken well of. There are too many times, even now in social media outlets, to where our good is being evil spoken of. The problem having that we have young children that don't know many of our black leaders that have gotten us to where we are, besides, our wonderful president and Martin Luther King. There are so many more. We need to know the origin from which Black History Month comes from. It originated as Black History Week. And in order for us to move forward, we must go from Black History Day, Black History Month. We must turn it into Black History years, decades, and centuries to come.
Historically, black families, especially in ghetto neighborhoods, it seems that they've just lost about what a mom, a dad, what it is to be a father, what it is to be a mother, a wife, a whole heritage with grandparents and great-grandparents. We seem to lost what that's about. Sunday and Easter and days that black families, especially when I was growing up in Harlem, used to be a time when families would get together and it was a big family meal. It was like a homecoming and everybody would get together, and all that has been lost. It's just, it saddens me to see where we've come, especially when by growing up in Harlem, I was able to see Adam Clayton Powell, see Malcolm X, to see Stokely Carmichael, and people who would come on the corners and talk to us. But when you have a neighborhood where you see a bar and a liquor store on every other corner from 147th Street to 125th Street, it speaks volumes of what's going on. So it is what it is, but again, we have to, reacclimate ourselves to being proud individuals, getting back to our heritage of the church, getting involved in politics, and empowering ourselves.
It's a time for us to teach our young that we do come from greatness, and what is seen in the media is not reflective of us at all. My mother came to Bridgeport from Mississippi, and we spent summers journeying back and forth through Mississippi. Most of her other siblings migrated to Chicago. That gave us an opportunity to see what Black folk were into in the South. My aunt lived down the street from Jackson State University. We had an opportunity at a very young age to be exposed to historically Black colleges. When I think about Black history, I think about my sorority sisters, Delta Sigma Theta, the role that my sorority sisters played in history, Fannie Lou Hamer, Dorothy Height, Loretta Lynch, our current attorney, United States Attorney General. All of the strides that these women have made have added to our greatness in America. And it's a time for us, like I said, to instill in our children that what is seen in the media does not reflect what we truly are. We are a great people, we are loving people, we're a spiritual people. And it's that strength, it's the spirit, it's the connectedness to the faith community that has brought us this far by faith. And that's what I think about during the month of Black History and every day. Black history is every day. Black folk are doing great things every day.
But when we talk about tradition, I know in my family, I'm from the island, Jamaica, right? Part of the whole tradition is that we get together on Sundays, to talk about and have like a family dinner. Sometimes my house, my mother's house is filled with like 50 people. Not, I'm talking about my kids, my brother's kids, my cousins. And just to reflect on, and be a family unit and show the younger kids in the house how we're supposed to live together as a family. And I think, what a lot of people forget is that we're family. We're all family, and we can't lose connections between us and the younger kids.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of the problems that we're having now is that the older generation has lost connection with the younger kids and have not showed them how to be social and socialize with adults. And I think this is a big part of the problem right now with our younger generation of Black kids. In my family, I remember I had my father who died at 93 years old. He would talk about, his grandfather who was a slave at the dinner table, and we talked about, and when I went back to Jamaica, I met my aunts and my uncles, and some of them were 100 years old. Remember, being born in 1865 and 1867. So, I mean, they were, their parents were slaves. So I kind of know about that, and I try to teach my kids this, and you have to respect your elders, and you have to respect, the younger kids with you. I mean, you have to follow, the certain order. And when you come together as a family on Sunday for dinner, it's not just about eating, it's about socializing, teaching the younger generation what it is to have a family, and most of our Black, kids, they've never had that.
To talk about family, I remember as being 4 and 5 years old, and every Sunday my mother would get us together, and we would go to Newark, New Jersey to see my grandfather, and he was on the railroad. And he would, go on the road and come back. And then when he'd come back, we'd go see Grandpa. And then after that, we had this big, Sunday dinner. We would sit and talk. And his family was from South Carolina, and my dad's family was from North Carolina. So my father would kind of, he would laugh and talk about people being geechee and the food that they would eat. And then he would, and the thing with the men in my family, I'm like, almost a half a foot shorter than the guys in my father's family. They were like 6'9", 6'7". But my mother was short. She was like only 5'4". And then my father used to tell me, that's the shortest man I ever seen before. He was like a little bulldog. But he with Daddy Mac, that was his name, Mac, Mac Cuthbert. He was in the railroad, and he was a very loving man. And that's the first thing I saw with men, that they were loving, they were respectful of women, and they put women on a pedestal. So, and I never heard anything about any domestic violence and cursing and stuff like that.
First of all, I don't celebrate Black History Month, okay? I live Black history every day of the year. And I just first and foremost want to give thanks to my parents for raising me that way. They had really instilled the importance of knowing my history as a child. They really talked about issues, whether they were historical or whether they were current issues. So that is why I live the way that I live today, and that's something that I'm passing down to my children. You know, Black history or the Black experience means so much to me because beginning in this the civilization of Kush, you know, and how that began, and we have, you know, not many people want to acknowledge the fact that Africa is the motherland, and Africa is where civilization began. And just going throughout times and seeing all of the tremendous achievements that we have made as Black people and how that has been trying to be oppressed over and over and over again. And you know, people want to act like slavery is the beginning of our history, which is not. It's a period of time in which was a very you know, unfortunate period of time that our people had to experience. But I believe that, you know, Black history just celebrates the people that have come before us that were brave, courageous. They went against all odds coming to this country, not knowing anything about this. And we've had to come from different tribes, different languages, different cultural practices, but we came together as a people and we supported each other and we were there for each other to make it through those tough times. You think about, you know, we have foster parents here that, you know, foster children. We're the original foster parents. We had a community of women, a community of families that we didn't necessarily know, but we fostered those children that lost their parents, their mother, their father to different circumstances, whether they got shipped off to this other plantation or whether they died because they tried to run away and the consequence of running away was death. And we were the original foster parents that set the example of how you bring a child in and how you take care of that child.
Black History Month to me means multiple sort of things. It's a time of reflection, appreciation, and above all, understanding. I think if we understand where we came from, we can understand where we're going. And as a youth, I think the focus for us, for me coming up, was kind of the 19th century or the 20th century of Black history. And as I grew older, I began to search more and understand that it's far beyond that. It's far beyond this one time frame. It goes back further than most of us know as far as what Black history is and all the things that we brought not only to this nation but to the world abound. We talk about, you know, the first people, and people, Cushites were the first people, and there's no beginning to them. They're the people who kissed the sun, and there's no beginning for them. And we moved on as kings and queens throughout time, and then we have the time frame that we kind of focus on here in the United States of Black history is kind of the 20th century, which is a lot has happened in that time. We've learned a lot, we've gained a lot, but for us, it's so much more an understanding of who we are as a people and moving forward.
Because it really does take a village to raise a child. I am a firm believer of that. So when I think about Black history, I think about a time where we have to, you know, think about those that came before us and the sacrifice that they made for us. They didn't know what the future was going to hold, but they knew that there was something better. They knew that one people did not deserve the treatment that was dished out to them. They knew that they would overcome. So they didn't know a Robin Wright. They didn't know the next person that was going to be able to benefit off of their hard work, and that is generation after generation. But they sacrificed themselves, they sacrificed everything so that we can have a better life.
It's also important to instill what we've learned and gained to our children. who are the next people to move forward. We have a lot of things that we've learned and a lot of things that we've gained. We have to pass those important things down to our children who are the next generation. Black history is an everyday thing. It's not just the month of February, but it's every day, and it's an open door for us to reflect and look at our history as a whole and where we're going.
And so when I think about my children, I think about sacrificing myself so that they can have a better life, because that's what we as a people do. We want to make it better for the next generation. So that's the importance of this month as Black History. That is the importance of sharing with our children so that they can know the stock from which they came from. And we are a strong people, and they need to know that, because if you don't know your history, then you're bound to be lost. You are bound to be lost. And that is what the slave masters really understood. If you take away their history of themselves, if you strip them of everything, they won't know anything. So that was the main purpose in that period of time. But you know what? It still shines, okay, through us. Back then, the greatness shines through us today, and it will continue to shine.